It is time for your favorite Android podcast from the crew of blindandroidusers.com. Kick back and enjoy another fine episode from these Google fanboys as they navigate Android from a blindness perspective. And now, here are your hosts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 13 of the Blind Android Users podcast. Unlucky for some, but not for us, and I trust not for you either. I'm Ed Green, and I'm joined this week by Warren Carr and Austin Pinto. Good evening, guys.
Hello there, Edward and Austin.
Hello to all our listeners. Welcome back.
We do, unfortunately, though, this week have to say goodbye to Pete Torkington, who was on the podcast last week and did so much for us behind the scenes as well in terms of the show notes. He's got some other commitments right now that means he can't be with us. But anytime, Pete, you want to come back, we'd be glad to have you. On this week's episode, Austin will be giving us the announcements of what's been happening over the past week. And a special guest, Rushikesh Kamewar, developer of the Shortcut Maker, who's going to come on and talk to us about this very useful and customizable app. In the Android Basics section, Warren and I will be demonstrating how to move apps around the home screen and talking about launchers and adjusting their settings. On the In Focus section, Austin will be showing you how to remove Samsung's version of Talkback, which is on Samsung phones running Android 11 and reverting to Google Talkback. In the App of the Week, Warren will be demonstrating Feed Explorer. And our My Black Android journey this week is the first of two parts of David Mellor's Android story. Austin, can I turn to you to talk about the announcements this week? What's been happening?
This week, there's a lot of things happening. So first of all, immediately after the last week's show recording, Warren went to Applevis podcast for the debate on iOS versus Android. It was a discussion, very nice discussion, and we'll be having the link to that show in the show notes. The next thing is Edward then went to the Life After Blindness show, and even that will be having a link in the show notes. Then this week, we crossed 2,000 playbacks. That is 2,000 times our podcast was heard. We did it within about 70 days, and we are heard in about 75 countries in the world. That's it from me.
Where was
Wow,
it?
and that-
Where was the drum roll, Austin? This calls for a celebration. I need to go out there. Have a little popper out there on the street.
Yeah, this calls for party, yeah.
It certainly
Thank you.
does, because without the plays, there's no point us doing this, folks. So do keep playing it.
Thank you so much. We truly enjoy you guys for taking your time to listen to those episodes. And as always, I tell you, you guys are the drive behind the scene. And so we truly appreciate what you are doing out there. And so with that, shall I go ahead now, have that opportunity, the pleasure of introducing our guest of the week, and that would be none other than the maker or the developer of the Shortcut Maker, and that would be Rushikesh Kamewar from India, and I'm mighty proud of that. Rushikesh, welcome to the party.
Yes, thank you, Warren. Yeah, hello, everyone.
Well, thank you so much. So we're going to be talking about your app, and I have it installed here. I think I probably should kind of bring up the app first and then, run a quick check on it, the layout and all of that. And then we'll talk about that app. Does that sound right, boys?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good. Yeah.
All right.
Device unlocked. Shortcut Maker. What's new in V3.8? 1. New Android 12 icon styles are added in edit icon section. 2. This is an experimental feature. Let me know if you have any issues. Join Telegram group or follow me on Twitter for more updates.
Okay, so when you launch the app, because I cleared all the cache and data, so it will appear like I'm running it for the first time. And so you'll hear that message,
Twitter button.
greet you, and you could swipe to Twitter, where you can interact with Rushikesh.
Telegram button.
And,
Telegram.
there's a Telegram.
Got it button.
And then, or you tap on I got it. Okay.
Shortcut Maker. Theme.
So when you launch the app, when you get past that screen, you are placed on this screen,
Shortcut Maker.
and
Activities. Row 1. Column 2. in red.
we
Three rows,
have
4 columns.
several columns here. And so that's how you interact with it. You got
Apps. Column 1.
apps to the left, and to the right of that,
Live Intents. Column 2. Settings, column 3. Websites, column 4.
And then the row below.
Interlink, row 3, column 1. In-app, column 2. Requested, column 3. Split, column 4. Collections, button, out of grid.
It is just
Click donate, 3 of 9.
full of all kinds of activities. I mean, all kinds of stuff
Join Telegram, 6
here
of
that
9.
you can do here. And so the whole idea is of a shortcut maker. You know how it is deep buried in your Android device is the fact that there are certain things you can get to, and I was surprised by how possible it was for me to find some things that I never thought I would be able to find, because even using like your Android native thing and say, hey, I want to grab something and put it in my quick panel, some of the things are not available. So with this app, you have access to just about everything on your Android phone. And so in my case, it came in handy because of the Brailleback app, which crashes a lot. And a lot of times I have to go back into system settings, go back into accessibility, then go tap on Brailleback. And it, of course, will say Brailleback is not working at the moment. And so I'm going to tap to disable Brailleback and then re-enable Brailleback in order to be able to use it. So what I had done was to use this shortcut maker and create a little shortcut to Brailleback on my home screen so that I would quickly get to it when I have such a thing. And that's what the app does. And so if you want to create, like say, hey, I want to quickly have an access to either my Wi-Fi or my Bluetooth or some app or whatever the case may be, or even to do not disturb or whatever, anything having to do with your Android phone, you can use that and grab that shortcut and put it on your desktop. And it's a beautiful thing. So I think that maybe next week or so we'll do an in-depth look on how it works. But since we have the guest here with us today, the developer, Rushikesh, my first question to you would be, what led you to developing this app? What was the reason why you thought, you know what, I think I needed to develop something like this called the shortcut maker? Take us down that journey.
Yeah. So rightly, like you said, that every time we use some settings and all that, some apps. So we want some direct shortcut to those functionality in one click, right? So basically, the idea was to bring that all that to the home screen. So
That's right.
first, yeah. So when I started, there were only some few features in the app, and as I went along with the development, I added more and more features.
That's right. Now, so and I'll let my other colleagues, ask some other questions that they may have about the app. But so, the first time I came across it, I think it was someone that had asked a question from our mailing list as to what other, shortcut maker that's available there on the Play Store, and I, suggested this. And at the time, though, there was like, some things were not very friendly to the screen reader. And I think I wrote to you, another person wrote to you, and I was surprised that in no time at all you fixed those issues. And I felt like going out to have a party because here's a developer, who listened to us, and in no time at all those things were corrected. Now tell us, was it really that difficult for you to make it compliant, make it, accessible to screen readers? Because most of the time, what we hear from other developers when we try to contact them, asking them to help us make things accessible to our screen reader, the usual thing has always been, oh, this is so time consuming and it's resources. I don't have the resources. Now tell us, did that really bring so much of an added cost to you by making this thing accessible, or how long did it take you to kind of maybe redesign or reconfigure this thing to make it accessible to those of us who are blind?
So I will say that it was not that difficult, but I want to make this app accessible to everyone. Uh, so this will also improve my app. So I thought it was necessary for me to do that. And the change you mentioned, like I guess image talkback, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, image description talkback. So I had the default image description like image description. So I changed that to null. So right now, if you came across any images in the app, it will just it won't say anything back.
Exactly, because the problem
Yeah.
was, it was saying image and then, followed by the name of the,
Yes. Yes.
the tab, like I was looking through earlier on. If that had not been
Mhm.
fixed, you would have heard things like, image activity, image settings, something like that. So you get rid of that, and now it just reads it out straight, and that's what we're talking about. So the contextual labeling
Mhm.
works really well, and now the app is just a joy to use.
Mhm. And thanks to you, this feature was added to the app.
Thank you so
And,
much.
Yeah.
and Rushikesh, how did you go about finding out how you needed to change the app to make it compatible with Talkback? Were there any resources you used? Because sometimes we write to developers and tell them that their apps aren't accessible, but we can't tell them how to fix it, and often they don't know themselves. So how did you go about learning what you needed to change?
So I had that previously configured in the app. So basically, whenever I add any image to the app, so I have to add one description for the same. So as a default, I keep it as image description. But then when Warren suggested me that it is a difficult for you to hear the image sound frequently, so I removed that particular description for all the images.
That's right. And I think that also in my email to you, I probably, because my thing is that whenever I write to a developer, I just assume from the position that they probably are not aware of, these tools or these, guidelines laid down by
Mhm.
Google. And so typically I would include like the Google accessibility scanner, and then also like the Google web page that is about developing with accessibility in mind. And so usually that's what I would do. And so, but I think that maybe I believe I sent that to you, but I think you probably understood what was needed, and so you probably didn't even need to consult, those resources that I had pointed. You understood what was going on, and you just went ahead and fixed it. I think it was just the following day or whatever, I got an update, and to my surprise, that thing has been fixed.
Yes, yes. So I am constantly giving updates. Like I started a weekly update for the app few months ago. So whenever you have any issues with the app, you can directly get in contact with me. So next week this that will be fixed.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, Austin, you got any question for Rashikesh?
Now, on some devices, it is difficult to add things to the quick access or the quick settings panel. So, can
Mhm.
the app do something that we can add or remove things from the to the quick settings panel?
Uh, I thought about it, but it was somewhat complex for me to build that into this app. I'm thinking of creating a new app for separate app for this.
That
Okay.
makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yes, yes, because it is already too much for one app, and I'm an individual developer, so it is hard for me to manage all the files and keep track of all the changes in inside one app.
And then I think also what happens is that you don't want the app to get way too bloated, and then it
Yeah, yeah,
becomes a
yeah.
problem.
It is already too hard for me to manage uh, all the app files, and if there is any change, then I have to track that I did that change, and it doesn't affect any other functionality of the app.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's really good because I'm excited about it, and I think that our listeners would be able to take advantage of it. It's a very beautiful app, well written, most especially now that all that accessibility issue is gone, and
Mhm.
making the app looking nice and clean. From the viewpoint of using it as a blind person with a screen reader. So, if you haven't tried Shortcut Maker, we're going to be putting the URL in the show notes. You give it a try, you won't regret it, and have those things you've always wanted on your home screen brought there by ShotMaker.
Thanks very much, Rishikesh. That was fantastic. And as Warren
Yeah.
says, do go and try that app. Now, last week we talked about the Play Store in our Android Basics section, and we're going to develop that a little bit this week. And Warren and I are going to talk about home screens and, allied to that, launchers. Warren, do you want to kick us off?
Well, so what we were trying to talk about is the fact that, hey, so now that you have set up your Android phone, you've gone to the Play Store and install your app. So you're going there, looking for an ebook reader or some music player, whatever the case may be. And when you install that app from the Play Store, by default, an icon to that app, gets placed on what we call the home screen. And I like to always liken the home screen to what we call the desktop on our computers. If you're a Windows user, and I don't know if what it is called if you're using a Mac. I'm not a Mac user or Linux user. But so that's the first place that when you turn on your computer or turn on your phone, on your computer, you're taken to the desktop. And then on your phone, you're taken to what we call the home screen. Now, on that home screen, you find those icons. So typically, if you're using like a Google phone or some other devices like Nokia or Motorola and those that are sticking close to the stock Android UI, you're going to find things like Google folder. You're going to find things like the Play Store. You're going to find things like Chrome or things like that. And so the description of the home screen is as follows. So you have at the very bottom what we call the dock. Now the dock would consist of things like I think you'll see like Chrome. You see things like phone or contacts. Depends on the manufacturer, and usually depends on the size of the phone or the launcher. But by default, I think the Google Pixel and any other Android One program phones would have like 5 of those things in the dock, and those are you know the kind of apps that come by default that sit on that dock, including your Google Chrome and Play Store and things like that, or messaging and all of that. Now, so the home screen is like your desktop. Then, whenever you install an app from the Play Store, it gets placed there. Now, you can manage that just like you can manage your desktop on a computer, meaning you could create things like folders, and so you can drop things into one folder. I particularly like to arrange my things in folders. So on my phone, for example, I have a total of, I think, about 15 folders. So I have things like audio, Bible, browsers, uh, you know, cloud storage, communication, and on, education or whatever, things like that, uh, file browsers and things like that. So when I'm looking for something, I know exactly what it is that where to find it. For instance, if I'm looking for, I want to create like a document, I know to go to word processing to find either Microsoft Office, Google Keep Notes, or whatever that I have placed in that folder. And so we're going to talk about how do you go about, creating those folders. And then if you don't like your launcher, because sometimes certain phones would come with, um, you know, and by the way, the home screens are powered by what we call a launcher. So think of it like the Windows Explorer on your computer, on your Windows computer. And so your desktop is powered by the Windows Explorer. And so your home screen is powered by the launcher. And so sometimes some of these launchers are not very accessible. In other words, I am not able to, move, say, hey, I want to add this app, into a particular folder, or I want to create a particular folder. And then later on, I want to drop things into it. Some of those launchers are not very accessible. And so if that happens to be the case, then it calls for a third-party launcher. And so I'm going to show the default launcher that comes on the Pixel. And then Ed is going to show us a third party launcher that gives him a different home screen experience other than the one that came natively with his phone. So I'm going to turn on my phone here.
8:32 a.m. Device unlocked.
So
Pixel
here
launcher. Shortcut maker out of list.
I am told that you heard Pixel Launcher. So that is the launcher that I have by default on my phone. And so if I want to create, say, I want to create a folder.
Apps list. Shortcut maker.
So I want to say, I want to create, this, I want to create a folder using this shortcut maker. So the whole idea is that you drag this shortcut maker and then add it, place it atop another app on that home screen or wherever you want it to create or wherever you want to create the folder in, and that would add it to it. And so we got two methods that I want to demonstrate here. The first one is by long pressing. And when I talk about, or when you read about someone say, hey, long press on this and that, what they're talking about is that you find the icon in question, double tap and hold, and then drag it around and listen to what it says. So,
Shortcut maker.
so
Shortcut maker.
I'm going to hold it down
Pause app.
and
Create folder with home screen 3 of 3. Move to row 5 column. Move to row 4 column 2. Move to row 3 column. Move to row 3 column 4. Create folder with radiogram. Move to row 3 column 3. Move to row 3 column. Move to row 2 column 2. Move to row 2 column 3.
so see, I'm moving it around.
Create folder with FamiSafe. Item moved.
Okay, so there's one called FamiSafe, family icon. So, I mean, they don't sound like the same thing, that they would belong to each other. So, in my case, I have a folder called MISC. So, I would have, moved it to a folder called the MISC. But so, for instance, if I
Radiogram.
don't want to do it
Authenticator.
that way,
NPS.
there's another way you could do it, and that would be by invoking the shortcut. And you could invoke the talkback menu and find the shortcuts. If I highlight an app
NPS.
and
Actions. Shortcuts and notifications. And list.
I bring up the actions, and I'm going to find where it says move. Now, from these actions, you could also uninstall or remove it from your home screen. So think of it like on your desktop. You don't want an app icon on your desktop. You could just hit delete. But here we have remove. So
Shortcuts and notifications. And list. Remove.
remove,
Uninstall.
uninstall,
Move item.
move item. So if I tap on move item
Pixel launcher.
and
Create
watch
folder
what
with
happens.
CV engineer. Create folder with read aloud. Create
Create
folder with Novitech Wi-Fi booster. Create folder with Newig. Create folder with home. Create folder with shortcut maker.
So let's say I want to add it to shortcut maker.
Folder created. Pixel launcher.
What that means is that now I will have a folder here that is unnamed, and it will just simply say folder.
Folder. No. 2 items.
So it says folder null, 2 items. If I tap here,
Shortcut maker. Folder opened. 2
there's a shortcut maker
NPS.
in there, and there's an NPS app in there. So the question is, how do I give this folder a name? So at the bottom of these 2 apps that are here sitting in this folder is an edit field.
Edit name. Edit box.
So you tap there,
Showing English. US. QWERTY. Keyboard. Pixel launcher.
and that brings up the keyboard. So you give it the name that you want to give it. For instance, let's say I'll just call it dog. Dog. Okay, so I've just
NPS.
created that thing called dog, and I
Folder
just
close.
need to click on.
Done.
I'm going to tap done at the
Keyboard edit.
bottom, or you could just hit back. It's still the same thing.
Folder close.
Will not cause any harm.
Folder. Dog. 2 items. Pixel launcher.
So there is my dog folder. Now, if I decide that I don't want,
Change
the
shortcut
folder, all I need to do is to remove one of those out of there, and I'm going to find.
NPS.
So I'm going to long press on that
Pause app.
and drag it
Home
out.
screen 3 of 3. Move folder closed. Move to row 4 column 4. Item moved.
So I moved it out.
FamiSafe. Home. Shortcut maker.
Now I don't have a folder called dog anymore. I've removed, I've decompiled or whatever, stopped that folder from being a folder, and I've moved one of them out. So now I don't have a folder anymore. And that's how you go about doing things, managing your folders on a Pixel phone and on most other phones. And so if your phone doesn't support or the launcher, which is your home screen manager, is not very accessible, then you could always use a third-party launcher, and this is where our friend Ed is going to show you how to use a third-party launcher.
I heard you were talking about the app folders, right?
Yes.
So I also like to suggest that in Shortcut Maker you can create collections. That is similar to what app folders are.
Aha. So, see, one could
Yeah,
use,
yeah.
the shortcut maker if you're having difficulty. You can use the shortcut maker also to create a folder.
I suggest you try it out because it is easier to add apps. You can add multiple apps at once to a folder. So yeah, if
That's
you long press on that app, it
that
has
makes
a full. It has some good features, more good features. I can't explain all them all at right now.
Excellent, thanks. And yeah, I'll definitely check that out if it enables you to do it with multiple apps at once. That sounds really good, Rushikesh. Thanks. As Warren demonstrated there, you can move apps around the home screen. What I will say is that if you want to move an app onto your home screen from your apps list, which you will access typically by flicking up with two fingers, unless you have multi-finger gestures enabled, in which case you might do a pass-through with the fourth finger single tap and do a one finger flick up. If you want to move an app from the apps list to the home screen, exactly the same methodologies apply. You will either double tap and hold and drag it, or you will use talkback actions as Warren demonstrated. Now, not all launchers, either inbuilt ones, OEM ones, or third-party ones, are created equal. So not all launchers will support talkback actions. What would be my favorite launcher, Nova, doesn't, so it's not my favorite launcher. I still quite like it, but I also like the ease of use of having a third-party launcher that supports talkback actions. I'm going to just unlock my phone now. There we go. So my phone has unlocked and it's using the Hyperion-Launcher. That's Hotel Yankee Papa, Echo Romeo, India, Oscar, November. Now, there's an easy way to tell whether your launcher, once installed, supports talkback actions or not. And that is to touch one of the apps with one of the higher verbosity settings enabled and listen to what it says.
Just need. Double tap to activate. Double tap and hold to long press. Actions available. Use swipe up then right to view.
So there you go. Actions available. That's what you want to hear. If you just see double tap to long or long press, that means it doesn't support the talkback actions. Now, as well as icons on your home screen, you have other things that you may not want. So if I tap near the top of my home screen and on the left-hand side,
double audible search.
You hear search. And if I tap in the dock,
Saturday reasons. Saturday, March 6th.
You'll hear I've got a calendar widget. So I've got a search and calendar. And I'm someone who doesn't like cluttered home screens. You'll see how many I have when I do a two-finger swipe right.
Home screen 1 of 1.
Home screen 1 of 1. So I want as much decluttering of my home screen as I can get, and features that I want don't include search bars or calendars. So I'm going to show you how to turn them off. Now, to get to the settings for any launcher, not just Hyperion, it would work on the Pixel. You need to find an empty area of your home screen. So do keep an empty area of your home screen, or one of them. I've tapped on it. Now I'm going to do a two-finger single tap and hold, basically a press. I got a tiny little haptic that told me that something happened. I doubt you'll have heard that, but I'll now explore what's on the screen.
Wallpaper widgets, double wallpapers, widgets, edit pages, icon bag, double edit pages, home settings, double tap to activate, double tap and hold.
So you can add widgets. Widgets are essentially applets or little pieces of apps that it's convenient to have access to on your home screen without needing the full app. So you might have something that shows you the temperature without needing to go into the weather app. You might have something that updates a top news story. You might have the phone number for a contact that you can just literally double tap on that widget and it will ring them without having to go and find them in recents or all of that nonsense. I'm not going to do widgets now, but I am going to go into home settings and see if we can't declutter some of these pesky features we don't want.
Home settings. Unlabeled button.
So there is an unlabeled button.
Labels. Settings. Unlabeled button. Theming. Edit. 1 of colors. Theme. Door and widget colors. 2 of 24.
So I'm not too concerned about the colors.
Iconography. Detailed icon customization. 3 of 24.
I don't really want to customize my icons at the minute.
Typography. Font configurations. 4 of 24. Layout. Heading. 6. Interface. Desktop. Door and dock tweaks. 7 of 24. Grids. Desktop. Dock and door grids. 8 of 24. Widgets. Google search bar and smart widgets. 9 of 24.
Oh, this sounds like where we might want to go. Sounds like it's got Google search in here. Let's go and see what we can declutter.
Unlabeled button. Out. Widgets. Unlabeled button. Google search. Heading. 1 of show on desktop. On. Switch. 11.
Show on desktop on. So double tap.
Off. Show dock. Off. Switch. Disabled. 3 of 11. Show app door. On. Switch. 4 of 11. More options. 5 of 11. Google Calendar / weather. Heading. 7. Show on desktop. Off. Switch. Disabled. Show dock. On. Switch. 9 of 11.
I'm going to go and disable that.
Activate. Off.
Now I'm going to go home and see if it's done what it should have done and got rid of those things on the home screen that we didn't want.
Home. Button. Out of. Hyperion. Audible. Audible. Double tap to activate.
Ah.
Double tap to hold the long press.
Audible is now the top left icon. It was second previously with the search bar above it.
Home. Netflix. Recents. Button. Home. Hyperion. Double tap Oriel.
And there is no evidence of a search bar. So for some of the home screen features, the removing them with the context menu of the app with a double tap and hold or talkback actions will work. For others, it won't. And you are going to need to go into your launcher settings to see if it's possible. Not all launcher settings will look the same, though, as I say, you get to them in the same way. If you're new to Android, you can turn on things in the launcher settings that, curiously, in my view, are off by default. So, for instance, if you like to know how many unread messages you have merely by touching the Messages app, if you have that on your home screen, you may well need to enable that in your launcher. It may not be on by default, because it requires the launcher to have permission to read all your notifications. So launchers seem not to be presumptuous enough to think you want that on. But if you're expecting to see it and don't, as I was, you might be a little puzzled. So you might have to go rootling around in those settings to customize various things. I've mentioned Hyperion. I quite like it. If you want your phone to look and feel like a Pixel, you might want the custom Pixel launcher or CPL. Warren's home screen will have next to it the Google Discover feed as a separate page, and the custom Pixel launcher will let you have that, but you will have to sideload a plugin from within the app. Once it is sideloaded, though, if you decide you don't like it, the CPL launcher will let you turn it off. Other launcher I've played with and had various degrees of success with is Apex. I don't recommend it particularly, though, because its settings are fiddly to open. For some reason, double tap doesn't seem to have been implemented quite properly. So I found myself having to touch the setting and then single tap with a different finger, which seemed to do the job, but it was very fiddly and inconsistent. So I don't, the launcher's fine, adjusting its settings aren't particularly. So I like Hyperion. You may well like your stock launcher, and if you do, you might not care about this segment of the podcast, but there are hundreds and hundreds of different launchers. I think I've got about 10 on this phone. Microsoft, which I found too verbose, Action Launcher, which I thought was okay, but again, I stuck with Hyperion. If you've got a launcher you quite like, why don't you tell us about it by shooting us an email, and perhaps we'll give that a mention and others on the phone can benefit. So that's home screens and launchers.
Thank you so much, Ed. That was a really nice description. And I hope that you guys, if you have a phone that doesn't support those actions, that you would find one that supports it. And, some of those that support those actions would include the likes of the Hyperion, the CPL, the launcher, launcher is a mouthful. I think what's that? It was action. Does
Action
action
does.
launcher does it support
Yeah. Apex
actions?
does.
And Apex does. And how about Nova? I think Nova
No,
does.
Nova doesn't, and it's
Nova
really,
doesn't.
really annoying because it's a great
It's a
launcher.
good launcher, unfortunately, and that's one of the downsides of the Nova launcher. Or else, I know that it used to be a very good launcher for blind people like that, but with the absence of it not supporting that actions, it just becomes a little bit harder to manage your desktop as you should. And
Yeah.
I think that the reason why sometimes we prefer like a third party launcher is because you could further customize as to how many columns or rows you have. I think by default the Pixel launcher, I think it's just 5 icons on a column and or row rather. And so to further customize your home screen, then you use a third party app.
Yeah. So and that brings us to the end of Android Basics for this week. On the In Focus section, Austin is now going to demonstrate how we uninstall Samsung Talkback from Samsung phones running Android 11. Many people have been experiencing issues with this in terms of responsiveness and in terms of a lack of functionality in some apps.
Hello everyone, this is the demo on how to uninstall Samsung's infamous TalkBack that they bought with Android 11, and a lot of people were facing a lot of issues with that. It was very less responsive and all those things, so I decided to make a demo to uninstall that and install Google Talkback. So you will need ADB and fastboot, which I'll be linking in the show notes, and you will be needing some commands, and you'll be needing two packages. One is Google Talkback and one is Commentary. You can download Google Talkback from APK Mirror, and Commentary I will be linking in the show notes. So let's get started. This is the Galaxy Note 10 Plus with One UI 3.1. So let's first we need to enable spoken feedback so that you talkback navigate up. We need to enable the ADB services. Navigate and software update, download tips and user accessibility. We need general to go management to apps, default battery and digital well-being tips, about phone, about phone. Navigate up, but about search, Alice, edit, RZ 359, status information, legal regulatory, software information, 7 of 10. And go to software information. One UI, Android version, One UI version 3.1, 1 of 12. Android version, Google Play, basement version, kernel version, build number, RP1A 200,720. You have to click on this 7 times. Developer mode has already been turned on. Okay, very good. We have enabled developer mode. So what you need to do is just click 7 times and you'll get developer mode enabled. It'll ask you for your PIN or password or pattern or whatever you have set. So now you need to go back. Developer options. Find developer options. Developer OEM unlock running service web view auto demo mode quick debug USB debugging debug mode when USB is connected off switch 14 this is of off, so turn it on. Allow USB cancel okay and okay. Developer options USB debugging debug mode when USB is connected on switch 14. Now it will say USB device is connected, but now there is another procedure that you need to do on your computer. So let's start it. You can do this without installing Commentary, but if you have sighted help around, you can do this without installing Commentary. But I don't have sighted help around, so I will install Commentary also. But then you can uninstall it. Once you install Talkback, you can remove Commentary. Once you install and start Talkback, you can uninstall Commentary. So let's start. Okay, so I'll open this
Platform tools 1.
platform tools.
Platform tools items.
Now, on a mailing list, I had written a guide. Many people had problems regarding it. So let me clarify. What you need to do is you need to go to the address bar, that is Alt D,
Address combo box collapsed. Edit deselected C. Users OSD
and
downloads. Platform
erase
tools.
everything from here and open CMD by typing
C,
CMD. You can also open PowerShell, but PowerShell, the commands are hard, they're difficult, but there is a way to simplify them. If you want to do it the PowerShell way, I will be linking an article that describes you how to set ADB and fastboot as environment parts on Windows. So let's open CMD.
CMD C Windows System 32 CMD.x Terminal C Users OSD Downloads Platform Tools Greater Microsoft
Now let's type ADB devices.
ADB space DEVICES S.
I type double S, so I just erase one. Let's see what
Star Demon
happens.
not running. Starting now at TCP colon 5037. Star Demon started successfully. List of devices attached. RZAM 744 YKVR unauthorized.
So it said the device is unauthorized. So we need to
The computer's not check.
check this box to always allow.
Check box. Always
And
allow from this computer. Cancel. Allow button.
allow.
Developer
And
options.
in this way, we
Developer
have
options
now
button switched.
started the communication between the computer and the device. So let's start getting our packages installed. First, we need to install Commentary. Now, when you download the packages, I would highly recommend that you rename the files to something very easy to install. Like Commentary should be renamed as Com. Talkback should be renamed as it has a long name. So you should rename it to TB or Talkback or whatever you want to rename it to, so that it's easy to type. So let's do this. Let's type
ADB
ADB
space
install.
INSTALL space COM.
I'm calling mine as Commentary COM. So I'll type com dot apk. You can type whatever you have named the package to. And
Performing streamed install. Success. C users OSD downloads platform tools greater.
okay, so it's saying success. So let's turn on Commentary. Now you can get the names of packages, and the app is called Package Info View. And then you can uninstall all the apps that you want to uninstall using the same command. Just replace com.samsung.accessibility with the com name of the package, and you can uninstall it. Now, warning, there are some critical apps that you may uninstall. Do not uninstall those, otherwise you may land up in a problem. And the only way, there are two ways actually of getting out of the problem. One is if you can download the ROM for your phone, stock ROM, extract it and see if you can find the APK and install it. Otherwise, second, the only way to come out of this problem is to format your phone, because once you format your phone, your apps will be like how it was before. It's just temporarily uninstalling it. It's not, it's like permanently uninstalled, but it's only for that user. Now, the next step is uninstalling Samsung Talkback.
Technology Co. Ltd.
And to do this, you need to
Tensor AI, Baidu AI, Bot 14, help and feedback, double click to activate.
you need to first open ADB shell. So let's type it.
ADB space SAELL D2/$.
It's in D2S/$. That's the device name, short code name. So you need to type this long command that you need to use, because in ADB shell, once you're in ADB shell, you cannot paste the command. So that is the problem with ADB shell. So let me just show you the command. So I'll type the command first, then I'll read it out to you. So the command is pm space uninstall space dash k space, and then there are two dash signs, user space 0 space So this is the long command. I'll be putting it in the show notes. So let me just press enter, and it has said success. So bye bye Samsung Talkback. Now we need to install Google Talkback. So to do this, you need to type exit first. So EXIT. Now you need to type ADB install
T-A-L-L space.
Now I'm calling my Talkback, Google Talkback as talkback.apk. So
T-A-L-K-B-A-C-K dot A-P-K.
and press enter.
Performing screen install. Success. T user Aussie downloads platform below greater.
And success. So Talkback has been installed, and now let's start Talkback. So we have installed Google Talkback, and to prove it to you, let me show you the screen of the new Talkback. This is
Close button.
9.1 or
Double
something.
tap. Next button. You will get simpler menus, voice control, and more. You will learn about key updates and changes in the next few screens. This will take about 3
And
minutes. Next, close button.
I'm just going to close
Double tap.
this because
Close
we have
tutorial.
already
You
done
can come
this.
back. Stay in tutorial. Close button.
Close.
Talkback. Navigate up. Talkback. Talkback shortcut. Not checked. Talkback shortcut. Allowed. View. Use. View. Use. Deny. Allow. Use. Got it. Got it.
And
Talkback.
another thing,
Set when talk. Settings. Sound and speak. Verbosity. Text to audio. New feature. Talkbacks. Navigate. Talkback settings. New on verb speak. Set control. Customize. Braille key. Braille keyboard.
and
Double
here you
tap
have
to
this
activate.
Braille keyboard that you did not have in Samsung Talkback. And this Talkback, the latest version available as of March the 6th, 2021. The version can change. I downloaded it from APK Mirror, and I'll be linking the page of APK Mirror in the show notes. So the show notes will have the command. It will have the links to and APK Mirror's Talkback.
Now, Warren, at a listener's request, is going to demonstrate our app of the week this week, which is Feed Explorer.
And this is from our friend Barrett from New Delhi, India. He sent me this app, wanting me to review it on the podcast. Now, I've seen this app before, but I never paid attention to it. And so I'm going to bring that app, and actually, it's not a bad app. But so I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of the app. And so
Feed Explorer.
here is Feed Explorer.
Started.
FEED space EXPLORER, Feed Explorer. When you launch the app, you have these rows. They're arranged in grids. And so we have at the very top,
Navigate up. Messages notification. To new.
at the top left, we have Navigate tab, and then
Home. More options. Button.
to the top right, you have more options. Now, below the Navigate tab,
Home. App. Selected. 1 of 5.
we got tabs there. We got Home,
Latest. Tab. 2 of 5.
Latest,
Liked. Tab. 3 of 5.
Liked,
History. Tab. 4 of 5.
History,
Unreads. Tab. 5 of 5.
and Unreads. So now basically, this is a news feed reader, and also in the same breath, it's also like a podcast player. So it's like killing two birds with one single stone. Now, below those tabs, we have things like
Latest. Row 2. Column 1. Unread. 4 rows. 4
Latest,
columns. Unreads. Column 2.
Unreads,
Liked. Column 3.
Liked,
Liked. History. Column 4.
and then history. And then below
Latest. Column
the
1.
latest, we have
Video. Row 3.
video
Add new. Column 2.
and add new. And that's what we're going to be working with. So if I want to add something new, you want to add an RSS feed, or you want to add a podcast, you want to tap on this add new.
Add new. Row 3. Channel.
So when you tap on add new, there's a default, which is channel. So
Scrolling search keywords URL. Edit box. Row
You-
2. Unread.
you tap on, where it says to insert the shortcut or the URL. And in this case, I'm going to look for blind Android users. Going to be selfish here, use our own podcast.
E. Voice input.
Blind Android users. And I'm going to
Search.
tap on search
Keyboard hidden.
and see what we find. So now in my search results, I'm looking from the top.
Channel. Tab. Selected. 1 of row explore. Out of grid. Blind Android users. Edit box. Search keywords URL. Row explore. Out of grid. Search. Podcast. Row 3. Grid. 9 rows. 3 columns.
So it will show you if the what you're looking for has podcasts or feeds. And so under podcasts,
Explore. Out of grid. Blind Android users podcast. Row 4. Column 1.
there it is.
3 columns.
And if you tap on it,
Feed Explorer. 6 started.
it
Article list. Dismiss button.
so it says it started, it added, and then below that you're going to find where it says feed, and that has to do with like news feed.
Explore out of print. Search. Feed dash no item available. Row 5.
So it says no item available because we don't have a news feed on our website. So all that it will show will be the podcast. So in a summary, when you search for something, if what you're searching for has both podcast and a news feed, you'll see both in the podcast is being the podcast section, and in the news feed is going to be under the feed. So then I'm going to tap on back. Now, when I go back,
Blind Android Users Podcast, column 2.
you see now we have
Live video. Blind Android Users Podcast.
we have blind Android users,
Add new. Column
and then to the right of that now. So instead of having the add new as the last item, we have blind Android users now in its place, and the one that says add new gets moved to farther right. So
Blind Android Users Podcast.
if I tap here,
10250. Blind Android Users Podcast, episode 11. Android with a perspective of a low vision user. Blind Android Users Podcast, February 23rd. Row 2. Column
so
10250. Android Basics Revisited and Enlightened by Zenny Live. Blind Android Users Podcast, 6 days ago. Column 1.
there it is. So if I tap on it,
Media Control. Android Basics Revisited and Enlightened by
it is time for your favorite Android podcast from the crew of Blind Android users. Now, here's what happens when you tap on it and it starts playing. And this is one thing that I'm going to be writing to the app developer about. It is the playback, the play or pause button. It is hidden. So you need to tap near the top here.
Hello, everyone,
And
welcome
you
to
tap here,
12th.
and it will bring up the
Hello,
the
everyone,
pause and all of that.
Welcome to the
See,
12th
so let me tap here again.
of Blind Android Users Podcast.
There's pause. I tap on pause, and that pause will stay there for as long as I want it, and then I could tap on it to play. Now, while below that we have several items here like buttons.
6 days ago.
We have
Exo Media Player Timer button. Exo Media Player Download button. Exo Media Player Live button.
so there's like
6 days ago.
so
Exo Media Player Live button. Exo Media Player Download button.
download
Exo Media Player Timer button.
timer.
1.0x button.
You can change the speed at which you want to listen to the podcast.
Exo Media Player Share button.
There's a share.
Exo Media Player Pip button.
And PIP, which is picture in picture.
Exo Media Player Link button.
And then the link will take you to our webpage. That is how that app works. So that would be a little short demonstration of the news feed or the feed explorer.
We'll be playing the My Android Journey section over a couple of weeks this time round, and it's from David Meller. So part 1 is coming up now.
Good day, Blind Android users. My name is Dave Mailer, and this is the first time you've probably been hearing my voice. Here's my Android story. And for me, there was no doubt that I was going to get into Android. iOS really was never an option for me. I work with computers and have been since the 90s. The one thing I don't like about the iOS platform is its closed, I guess it'd be the closed nature of it. It's all handled by Apple. If you don't want to do something the Apple way, I guess it is, then you're kind of out of luck. So to me, that's kind of a bit of a negative. I'm also an avid Windows user. I use Windows on a daily basis. I use Linux on a daily basis. I use FreeBSD on a daily basis. To me, Android just seemed a natural fit. That explains the why I went to Android versus iOS. The issue is I went there entirely, the optimal word is accidentally. Here's the story. I believe it was the Nokia Surge back then? It was AT&T. This was 2012. And I think it was the Nokia Surge. It was Symbian running talks. And it had the slide-out keyboard, if I remember correctly. And I was in fact, going to take a trip, as in I was going to get my backside on an aeroplane, which entails me going to the aeroport, going through security, sitting down, needing reliable communication so I can inform my person that I'm getting on the airplane and I am flying to them. I am flying out of state. And 24 hours before said trip happened, the phone died. It just died. It went totally, it's like it blew its brains out. There was no fixing it. I went into the AT&T store. They looked at me and said, "There's no way." They said, "This thing is dead." They said, we can't even fix it for you." 24 hours from a trip. Yeah, that's my life. So they're trying to get me, obviously, into a new phone and a new contract, but we won't go into the eccentricities of AT&T. I've since dumped them. But they wanted to get me into the iPhone. And I'm like, no, what else you got? So they got me into the Samsung, I want to call it the Captivate Glide. Yeah, that sounds right. So I've had some phones I've really loved. And I've had some phones that I'm like, okay, this is a good phone that I'll use. It'll work until something better comes along. The Captivate Glide did me good for a couple of years. We had some hiccups. Pretty much got halfway through the trip and the phone decided to die. Well, it was I think they said it was the SIM card back then. And they replaced it. And it didn't even get me home and the SIM card blew out again. So I went to one AT&T store at my trip location, got a new SIM card, got home, hit the AT&T store here. This is all without a phone. And believe me, when I say it's definitely interesting to travel without a cell phone. It really brings back a lot of memories. I mean, I used to do it back when, before we had a cell phone in your pocket, when you had to go to the teller at the airport and be like, "Hey, can I borrow the phone and call a cab, call a hotel, call this and schedule," and you had to wait. Cell phones make things a lot more convenient. But got home, went to the AT&T store. They looked at it and said, "Oh yeah, the internal components are fried." So they pretty much replaced that phone, same phone, and I walked out of there with a working Samsung Captivate Glide. And that phone lasted me several years. It was a good phone. The next one I got was the LG G2. That one, I loved it. I loved it. In fact, I think I still have it. It still works. I took it officially as far as Android would go, and I got into, as Warren calls it, the Mongolian ROMs next. That was my first introduction into Android modding, and it was called Cyanogen Mod back then. It's called Lineage today. And that thing, if I would still have AT&T as a provider, I'd probably still be using that phone. I mean, it's a nice phone. Switched providers, had some issues with AT&T, so switched them. I'm on a monthly provider, and MVNO. And first phone was one of the budget jobs. It was another LG. It was a Leon, I believe it was, a little $50 phone. It was good. I think it's still around here somewhere. It still works. It was good for doing what it needed to do, which was keep me in contact. Then the phone I got that I pretty much loved to death, to absolute death, literally, it died last September of 2020, was my Galaxy S7. I had that for 4 or 5 years. I mean, I got it when it just came out. in, I believe the release date was 2016. It just died, like I said, last September. I mean, I used it to death. And that phone was awesome. Have replaced it with my current phone, which is the S10 Plus. There are things about this one I don't like as much. It is obviously a follow-on phone. It does do more of, more in the same of what I've got used to with the S7. I don't know. Maybe I've become too impressionable that, the S7 just couldn't be beat, and was expecting something earth-shattering from the S10 that I just didn't get. I mean, it's a good phone, don't get me wrong. But there are things about it I don't like. And that's pretty much my Android story. That pretty much explains how I got into Android.
Well, thank you so much, guys. It has been wonderful. And thank you, Austin, particularly about the demonstration of that, removing Samsung Talkback and replacing it with the Google Talkback. This has been something that many of our listeners or subscribers to our email have been talking about. And so we are so thankful. And Rushikesh, you have been wonderful, man. Thank you so much for coming to the podcast. And would you be willing to come again, down the road, something changes and all of that? We want you to come back.
Yeah, definitely. No problem. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
So to listen to all our previous episodes and also these episodes, you can visit us at blindandroidusers.com. You can subscribe to our fantastic mailing list where the topic of Samsung is all being discussed, and there are other fantastic topics being discussed. You can send an email to blindandroidusers, the plus sign, subscribe at groups.io. That is blind Android users plus subscribe at groups.io. You can follow us on Twitter at blind droid users, and you can also follow us on our Telegram group. Join us there. We are nearing 100 members almost, and the link will be in the show notes. Also, you can visit our website, and by the time this show is out, there should be a page on having the written guides, and I will be making sure that the guide on how to uninstall Samsung Talkback will be also put in that page, so you can visit it and read that guide.
And that has been another episode of the Blind Android Users Podcast. As always, we appreciate hearing from you. You send those email messages to contact us at blindandroidusers.com. For those My Android Journey stories, we encourage you to send those to myandroidjourney at blindandroidusers.com. Until we see you in our next episode, you have a wonderful day.